Jam, not a marmalade, but jam. Making perfect jams is today's topic. And with my years of experience and my mathematical mind, I would like to summarize the steps of making perfect jam. First, choosing the fruits. Choosing your fruits is quite important. It shouldn't be very ripe and it should be very raw. The fruit that you choose should be around the same maturation levels. The reason for this is if it's too mature, it might ruin your jam because it might have started to go bad. One fruit could ruin the whole jam. If it's not ripe, the pectin level is going to be low. And pectin is the most important player in making the jam. Pectin is what makes the jam jelly and have its own very nice consistency that we love. And pectin is high on some fruits and it's not so high in other fruits. Pectin is not equally distributed in the fruit. Usually it is the highest around the skin of the fruit and around the seed near the stem. In strawberry, for example, pectin level is not very high, it's 0.25, whereas it's 30% around the skin of citruses. For example, in orange it's around 3%. So it makes a whole lot of difference. But for the strawberry to become jelly, you can always add something that includes pectin. For example, quince is quite high on that. Apples, you can use the skin of the apple and the seeds, same for the quince, and put it in a cheesecloth and add it to the mixture of the jam and it will increase the level of pectin. When you buy jam from a store, maybe it's quite dense and those usually have added pectin in them. That's how it becomes so jelly and high on its consistency. So I would like to put some of the levels of pectin in some of the fruits here. Then I move to the size of the fruit. It's really important. The size of the fruit should be around equal sizes. If one is too big and the other one is quite small, on the time that this big of a, let's say a strawberry, takes time to cook, this will be a puree. If we want jam which has its own individuality, still stiff, we should get all the fruits around the same size. If we cannot, we can cut some of the ones that are too big. Sugar level. Sugar level, it's very debatable. I have on my Turkish channel lots of recipes, lots of jams without sugar. That can be possible. The perfect jam is around 45 to 50% sugar. If we put 1 kilo of, let's say, a strawberry, we should add 400-450 grams of sugar to make it a balance. And when it's cooked, the level of sugar quite increases to almost 2/3. Then another thing is choosing the pot that you make the jam. It's great in copper, it's great in stainless steel. Pot that you make shouldn't be like a pasta pan, like small in diameter and long. It should be wide. The fruit should linger around happily. If the fruits linger nicely, you'll get a better jam. One thing when you make a jam, if it's close to the heat at the bottom, it becomes really high heat at the bottom and not so high heat on top. And we don't like stirring the jam so much, so it will be imbalanced and some of the things will be cooked very much and the others won't. So we don't like pans like that. Secondly, we don't like using spoons, but if you want to use it, use a shimshir one. I know some of the followers from India, some of the followers from Europe know what shimshir is. This is a special wood which is great. You can use shimshir on like a wooden spoon would work, but smell the spoon. If you have used it to make stir garlic or onion, and if it's not shimshir, shimshir doesn't get it inside its surface, but some of the other spoons do, so these ones are great. Anyways, let's move to amount of jam that you make. In villages we have jams like this because we have pots that are really big. But if you're gonna do it on a stovetop, don't make it more than 2 kilograms. If you make it more than 2 kilograms each time, have different pots and make them together, but one pot shouldn't be higher than 2 kilograms. Because if the amount in the pot is high, it will take longer time for the fruit to turn into a jam. And the longer time means each fruit would be ruined in size. Burak, before we started the video, said, Refika, when we say jam, we always like the fruit on its individual shape and texture. But in the world, it's more closer to a marmalade. That's why I started not a marmalade, but jam. Jam meaning perfect shaped fruits. So the amount is important like this as well. How should we cook the jam? First, as we said, like pectin is quite important. Pectin gets worked in by several things. One is sugar and calcium. When we collect the fruit, we put the sugar maybe a day before. For example, it's a strawberry. Wash the strawberry, rinse it. While it's still a little bit of water on it, put the sugar in and let it sit for a night on a cool place. The sugar will melt slowly and the sugar will awake the pectin in the strawberry or whatever the fruit is. The strawberry will keep its shape more when it starts to cook. When you put it in the pan, start by simmering, not very high heat. The white, like the crystals of the sugar, should be all melted into like watery consistency before the pot starts to boil. If it starts to bubble before the crystals are already melted, then the jam that you've already made might crystallize afterwards. This is really important. This is also very important while we make the sherbets, when we look at kadayıf, etc. This is something I constantly try to give the information about. There's something called kef. It's the foam of the jam. Always collect the foam of the jam. I like eating the foam of the jam on its own. It's a great delicacy. If I had a Michelin star restaurant, I would probably give the foam of molasses, give the foam of the jam in season as a starter on like a crunchy bread, some cheese, and the foam goes great. But it's not great in the jam. What the foam does, it clouds the jam. We don't like that. Not always, but sometimes gives a bitter taste to the jam. So the foam should be collected with a sieve. The sieve time to time should be cleaned. As the jam reduces on the side, you should like wet a cheesecloth or something and clean it, because sometimes the pectin sticks on the side and it starts to burn as the jam reduces, and we don't like that either. While making the jam, don't try to sometimes make the bottom up movement by a spoon. Don't do that. Take it in your two hands and try to shake the pan like this. Sometimes cool air gets in the jam, it slowly increases degrees, and we don't like that. Always try to do it this way, it makes a difference. Personalizing the jam. This is something I love. Personalizing is like having your additions. I like making two different additions to the jam. One is with spices, the other one is by nuts, going nuts. I like going nuts. How do I go nuts with the jam? I like, for example, raw almonds with cranberry. Incredible. Or toast some hazelnuts and mix it with some sour apples. Oof, incredible. Or when you look at the spices, put some cinnamon or cloves are great. Sometimes 5 spice, sometimes black pepper goes great. Sweet, and if it's something sour, for example, a cherry, I like cherry with hot, so you can put like red pepper flakes and some bitterness, a bit of black pepper. Incredible. How do we understand that our jam is ready? Always the jam in your jar would be like thicker in consistency than the one in your pot. If you let the pot be the same consistency of the jar, or like the cool one, it won't work. When the sugar is hot, it's usually more runny. How do we understand? Take a plate, white one, throw it in the freezer for about 2-3 minutes, and then take it out, put the jam in on top, and a tablespoon. Let the jam totally cool to the room temperature. And if the consistency is the one that you like, jam is already ready. If it's not, let it sit for another few minutes. Finally, when you finish the jam, a bit of lemon. Lemon is very important. Why? As I said, like the pectin, with acidity, you seal the whole thing. But if you put too much lemon, the bitterness of the lemon gets in. But when you turn the heat down and put some lemon, the jam is sealed and great. Don't forget that. And last one is, how do we put the jam into jars? Jars should be sterilized. How do we sterilize it? We put it in hot water and take it out at 100 degrees so it's sterilized, or you put it in the oven and let it cool. You shouldn't touch the inside of the lids, and do the same thing to the lids, but you shouldn't touch the inside of each of them, and take it out. Turn the heat off and then let it cool for 5 to 10 minutes at least. If it's very hot, then the fruits become really delicate and you can ruin their shape. So after 5 minutes, if you have something like this, I make these in Turkey with karaca. You can buy it in London, I guess, and Germany, but not in rest of the world yet. You put the jar here, you put it in so you don't mess up the neck of the jar. When it's still hot, close it. Make sure that it's already closed really well and it's still hot. let it sit, and then store it in a cool place without sunlight. Your jam is going to be ready. Troubleshooting. If your jam is too watery and it's not, the consistency is the right one, take the lid off, put it back in the pan, let it heat up for a while. Add a bit of lemon, because probably lemon is not enough, the pectin is not sealed. Cook it again and then put it back in the jar, and same thing, it will probably work. Second, if my jam is crystallized, what can I do? Can I save it? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Open the jar again, put it back, put a bit of water. Don't heat it up very fast. Heat it up very slowly. Make sure that the sugar melts in a relaxed way, and then put it back in. You might save it, you might not save it. Put a bit more lemon again for sealing, but not too much. Third, if your jam has some molds in it, that's not so good news, that it might not be very savable. I can tell you the reason why it would happen. You might have not sterilized your jars really well, or sterilized your lid really well, or you might have put the jam when it's cool inside the jar. You might not have closed the lid well. These might be the reasons. One of the things that, like choosing the fruit, if your fruit was too ripe and was maybe going bad inside, that might affect the whole jam. These are some of the things. And when you open the lid for the first time and start to use the jam, always put it in the refrigerator so that you won't have the chance that it won't go bad. Anyways, you might say, Refika, I'm not a jam person anymore. I like jam. Some of the fruits on my garden, I don't know what to do with them, so I want to make jam, but I don't eat jam. So these are some of the things that you can use your jam in different ways. First, make it a drink with tasty water from strawberries, from peaches, or make a fizzy drink with a bit of jam and then some soda. That would work. Secondly, use it as a filling of a cake. It would be great. Or you can make a filling of a crepe. That would be also wonderful. As a snack or as a course, you can put some yogurt and some jam. It would be great. Another thing, put some jam and some maybe greens, add some water and put it in the freezer. Then suddenly it becomes a great looking ice. You can use it in champagnes, you can use it in drinks, and it will be so cool. Everyone you invite in your home would be amazed. Another thing, you can make jams with different things like hot pepper or hazelnuts, etc., and then use it as a sauce for a meat or a burger or a burek, and it would be a great dip. So these are some of the things that you can use the jams differently. This is the video. Hope you've enjoyed the video. I know I've talked too much. You might want some recipes, like I want to make a perfect this jam or that jam. Some of the recipes that we already have are below, but more importantly, actually these are some of the troubleshootings for some people who have already made jams and failed or did not fail. This is the mathematics that you might not find anywhere else. So I wanted to summarize that. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed it, you know what to do. Please subscribe. Please suggest it to your friends and loved ones. Do some of the recipes and share it with your loved ones. That would be great on us. We want all the support that you can give. Thank you. Have a good day.